It happens without warning. You're in the shower, or almost asleep, or halfway through a sandwich, and suddenly it's back. A moment from 7 years ago, something you said at a party, a joke that landed wrong, a name you forgot when it mattered most. Your face goes hot, your stomach drops, and for a few horrible seconds, you are completely back there. You didn't choose to remember it. You weren't trying to. Your brain just dragged you back, uninvited, like it was doing you a favor. It wasn't. Or was it? Because here's what neuroscience has started to uncover about your most cringeworthy memories. Your brain isn't broken. It isn't cruel. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. And it has been doing this since long before you were born. The real reason you can't forget embarrassing moments has nothing to do with weakness or sensitivity. It has everything to do with survival, status, and a social operating system so ancient it predates language itself. Your brain is not a neutral recorder. It doesn't treat every moment the same. Every second of your life, your hippocampus and amygdala are making a quiet judgment. Does this matter? Most moments get filed away loosely, or not at all. But certain moments get flagged, highlighted, burned in, and the moments that get burned in the deepest are always the ones that involve other people watching you. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades mapping the amygdala, the small almond-shaped structure tucked deep inside your brain that processes emotional significance. What he found was startling in its simplicity. The amygdala doesn't care whether an experience was good or bad. It cares whether the experience was important, and your brain has one ancient, unwavering rule for deciding what's important. If other people were watching, it was important. This is where the embarrassing memory problem begins. When something embarrassing happens, your brain doesn't just record the event. It tags it with a full sensory and emotional package. The sound of the room, the faces of the people there, the exact physical sensation of heat rising into your cheeks. Researcher James McGaugh, a pioneer in memory consolidation at UC Irvine, demonstrated that emotional arousal triggers the release of stress hormones, primarily norepinephrine and cortisol, that act like chemical highlighters in the brain. They tell your neurons, encode this hard. Do not let this fade. So while a pleasant Tuesday afternoon dissolves into nothing within weeks, that moment you mispronounced a word in front of your entire class in 4th grade is still sitting there, crisp and complete, decades later. But why? Why would evolution build a brain that tortures you with your own worst moments? Go back far enough, and the answer becomes obvious. Your ancestors didn't live in apartments, they didn't work alone, they didn't have the option of moving to a new city after a social failure. They lived in small, tight bands of 20 to 50 people, the same faces every single day, for their entire lives. In that world, your reputation wasn't just important. It was the difference between eating and starving, between being protected and being left behind. Social status determined access to food, to mates, to shelter, to safety. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, whose research gave us the concept now known as Dunbar's number, argued that the human neocortex expanded dramatically, not because of environmental pressures, but because of social complexity, managing relationships with dozens of people, tracking who owes whom, remembering who embarrassed themselves and how they recovered. This was the cognitive challenge that built your brain. You are, in the most literal sense, a social computing machine, and a social computing machine needs accurate threat detection. In your ancestors' world, public embarrassment was a genuine threat signal. If you violated a social norm, if you failed publicly, if you were caught in a lie or a weakness, the group noticed. And if the group noticed too many times, the consequences were severe. Exile, rejection, the loss of everything that kept you alive. Your brain learned, over hundreds of thousands of years, to treat social failure the way it treats physical pain, as information that must not be ignored, as something to study, replay, and never repeat. Psychologist Mark Leary at Duke University has studied what he calls the sociometer, his term for the brain's internal system for monitoring social acceptance. Leary's research suggests that self-esteem isn't primarily about how you feel about yourself in isolation. It's a readout, a running score of how accepted and valued you appear to others. When that score drops, When you do something embarrassing, when you are rejected or laughed at, your brain triggers an alarm. A painful, insistent alarm designed to force your attention onto the problem. That alarm is the cringe memory. It replays not to punish you, but to teach you. Your brain is running a simulation. What exactly happened? What did you do wrong? What signals did you miss? What could you do differently next time? This is why embarrassing memories come back most forcefully during quiet moments, in the shower, lying in bed, staring out a window. These are the windows when your brain switches into what neuroscientists call the default mode network, a state of self-referential processing where you consolidate social information, model other people's perspectives, and rehearse future behavior. Your cringes are your curriculum. This also explains something strange you may have noticed. Your embarrassing memories feel far more vivid and more shameful to you than they do to anyone else who was there. Psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky at Cornell University studied this phenomenon and named it the spotlight effect. Their research showed that people consistently overestimate how much attention others pay to their mistakes and awkward moments. In study after study, participants believed their blunders were noticed and remembered by almost everyone present, when in reality, most bystanders had already moved on. The audience you're playing your worst moments back for largely doesn't remember them. They were busy managing their own spotlight, running their own sociometer, worrying about their own performance. But your brain doesn't know this. Your brain evolved in a world where the same 50 people watched you every day, where reputations were built over decades of repeated observation. It still behaves as if every watcher is a permanent witness. The result is a memory system that is magnificently calibrated for a world that no longer exists and only partially useful for the one you're actually living in. There is something else happening in these replays that science has only recently begun to understand. When you re-experience an embarrassing memory, you are not simply playing back a recording, you are actively reconstructing it. Neuroscientist Donna Bridge at Northwestern University demonstrated that every time you retrieve a memory, you subtly alter it. The act of remembering is an act of rewriting, which means every time your brain drags you back to that awful moment, it is also giving you a chance, without your conscious awareness, to process it differently, to update the emotional charge, to slowly, gradually file it away as resolved. This is not fast. It is not comfortable, but it is happening. Your brain is not broken for replaying the worst hits. It is doing what it was built to do. Protect your place in the group, refine your social behavior, and process the experiences that carry the most social weight. The fact that it overshoots, that it brands you with moments that almost no one else remembers, that it sounds the alarm for stakes that no longer exist, is not a flaw in the design. It is the cost of the design. A system sensitive enough to keep your ancestors alive in a world of brutal social consequence is also sensitive enough to make you feel alone in your bathroom in the middle of a Tuesday, like you are still standing in that classroom in 4th grade, mispronouncing a word in front of everyone. Your brain did not do this to you. It did it for you. And somewhere in the gap between those two words, between 2 and 4, is the beginning of understanding why you are the way you are, why you remember what you remember, and why the most socially attuned animal on Earth is also the only one who lies awake replaying a handshake that went wrong at a party 6 years ago. Tonight, when something pulls you back, when your brain serves up a moment you would rather forget, notice what it is really doing. It is running its oldest program, scanning for threats, protecting your standing, rehearsing your next move. It has been doing this since long before you had words for it.